Well, I am back again with Archie. He's gonna get back in his position on my shoulders, my buddy Archie here. And welcome back to another episode. Hold on, I've got an itch on my nose. Also, my nose looks a bit red. I think it's a tan. Might not be. But welcome back to another episode of Horror and I. And I was going to talk about my favorite horror series slash film this episode, but I think from the last episode, most of you will gauge that my favorite horror series, although it's one of three, is Final Destination, and so I'm going to actually save that for another episode because I want to talk about my favorite three horror series is all in the same episode. And I haven't planned that far, I'm not gonna lie. Although these episodes I don't really plan, because it's supposed to be my genuine personal experience, and if I can't pull it out the top of my head, then I can't pull words out the top of my head, but it can't be that genuine. So, I'm back with the long hair. I've got it out my eyes this time, but you know. So, instead, I am going to tell you my 5 favorite horror film kills from my favorite series, Final Destination. And I'm going to prefix this with, although I say favorite, they're favorite for different reasons. So they're not my top 5, just, whoa, these are the best kills in the film, but these are personal to me and how they've affected me. And the different experiences I've had with watching each of these scenes, and that's why they're my top 5. And of course, spoiler alert for this episode, as I will be going into detail about which film the kills are in, how the kills happen, everything else around that. And so, starting with number 5, the escalator death scene from The Final Destination. So, I don't want to talk too much about this one because I told you a lot about it in the previous episode. And I think although this kill is gory and it's fun, The Final Destination is my least favorite Final Destination film, mostly because of the appeal to try and go for a wider audience just made it a much more smuttier and a much more dumbed down Final Destination film. It became this action adventure with nudity and death instead of this like niche horror that the other films had been. But as I spoke about last time, it was in fact this escalator scene, or at least the clip from the trailer, which then led me on to watch the scene, which drew me in so much into horror. The grossness and just the savage and disgusting idea of having someone pull into an escalator through the gears. And it's not the first time this has been done. There's other films. I remember in 2012 that something very similar happens, but often when this sort of thing happens, it's like you see them get stuck, you see them get crushed a bit, and then they're gone. This was gore, this was blood spurting, this was bits of body left on the gear, and it was just gross. But it really drew me into horror, and so it has to go on the list, although it's not getting any higher than 5th place. Number 4. So, number 4 is similar in that I think it was a good kill in a film that, although I love, wasn't great as a film. To be fair, a lot of people like this one, and I think it's my 3rd favorite Final Destination film, but it's from Final Destination 5, and it is the famous gymnastics gone wrong scene, similar to the vlog I did a couple weeks ago. So, we have someone standing on a nail. Horrible. Already, anytime someone stands on something sharp in a horror film, ooh, it makes my skin crawl. It's like someone scratching chalkboard. I hate it. I can deal with it. It doesn't stick with me, but just that image, that moment, horrible. But then beyond that, it has a whole sequence of events. I think this is one of the kills in the series that has several possibilities that are obvious, because often it's like, ooh, maybe this will knock something over, or ooh, maybe something will happen over here, and then this will happen, and it's always like a kind of cryptic or too subtle sometimes, or there's just maybe one alternative. But this one had several things. You were like, is she going to fall on the nail? But how is her standing on the nail going to kill her? Or then there was the water, and you were like, well, if she gets electrocuted, but at the same time, that's not that exciting for these films. And you were like, well, maybe the fan looks like it could fall, but then it won't. And there's a lot of different things leading up. And I think the suspense, because already, maybe it's just me, and I love gymnastics, but you do, when you're watching gymnastics, of course you don't want anyone to be badly hurt, but there is a certain thrill about watching real life gymnastics and thinking, if they screw up a move here, they hurt, they're gonna be in pain. And so the whole time you're watching all these people do gymnastics, and you're almost feeling what that character in the audience is feeling, audience of the gymnastics, going, ooh, ooh, but also being like, yeah, she's nailed that. And then of course, so the girl steps on the nail, she falls, she knocks the chalk goes into the eyes of our character Candace, and she goes whoosh, 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 snap. And there goes her spine, there goes her knee, there's just bones sticking out. If you've watched one of the Saw things, maybe it's not come out yet, I go into detail about when I see a bone sticking out. Ooh, that's like, not much gore will make me squirm. I can watch most gross gore, it doesn't bother me, but when there's a realistic looking bone stick out, nah, not for me. And so that scene, just all around, I think the build up, the suspense, the gore, the shockingness of it happening, but also kind of the reactions of the other characters. I just think it's a very well made scene and a very elegant but horrific death. In number 3, we have the nail gun scene from Final Destination 3. Now, this is in my top 5 because, in my opinion, it is the goriest and most just messed up, shocking, kind of just disgusting idea. It's sudden because you don't know who's about to die. It's implying that someone else might die. There's 4 of them in the room, and there's a lot of different things going on. This again is another scene with a lot of build up as they're walking through this workshop, and there's so many different dangerous and sharp and heavy items just lying around, and you're just questioning, how are they going to die? And in my opinion as well, controversial maybe, Final Destination 3 is my favorite of the series. I love the idea of the photographs. I think it was a nice take on the whole scenario where it wasn't just premonitions, but instead it was clues and people were having to work them out. Of course, it barely helped anyone in the end, and the clues were just a kind of fun add-on and didn't do very much for the main character, but it was quite nice to think there were so many things you thought were going to happen, but then had you looked a little bit closer, you maybe would have seen the one that did happen. And just the idea that falling into a nail gun and then you're done. But not only that, it's the slight exhale you hear from the character right at the end. So you know that they have just experienced that whole thing. She's here with her hand over her face, and it's just nails coming through the back of her head and coming out her face. And then you just hear the last breath. And I just think it was so shocking, but so clever in everything that there was. And it just, I've watched the behind the scenes, and even the way that they filmed it, you should check it out, it's on the DVD, is brilliant. And so that's why it's at my number 3. But it's not my top 2 because I think it doesn't have a personal effect on me beyond just the fact that I like it as a kill. And so number 2, now this one is a bit different in why it's up on the list. So if you watched my last episode, you'll know that there was a period of time in which I was scared of everything. I was scared something was going to fly through my window and something was going to hit me on the street, or I just felt I wasn't safe anywhere because of these films. And the main reason was because of this particular death. And it is when the kid walks out of the dentist, scares those pigeons, causing one of them to drop a massive pane of glass on him. Yep, the pigeon was just there on its own, flapping its wings, trying to carry this massive pane of glass. No, but it knocks down this construction site glass thing, and it absolutely crushes the boy. And it's just the moment where his body goes from a human being stood up still to just liquid. And it's not realistic. If you watch it, from the moment it hits him, he just pretty much explodes. It's not how it would have gone. I'm sure he would be squashed beyond anything. It would be bad. But as a 14-year-old or however old I was when I saw it, it just shocked me so much. And it was so unexpected because you thought he was going to suffocate, at which point, I mean, that's still horrible, but it's not a shocking or disgusting horror film death. And so seeing that and then thinking how scary and horrific that would have been to experience for real, it just stuck with me. And it forever, even to this day, I can watch all those films, but that one particular moment, it's still just, ooh. Every time I'm just like, wow. And although the actor, I'm sure, was like 20, they were not afraid to just kill a kid. He was supposed to be, what, like 15 or something? I don't know. It was a bit weird because he was clearly like, I mean, I look younger than him now, but yeah, it was a chilling moment that stuck with me for many years before I was even able to think it wasn't scary anymore. And still to this day, when I see it, I'm like, whoa. But it's not my number one. And my number one, it's a bit weird. It's a bit niche. It's one that most people don't even remember from the Final Destination series, but I think that's why I like it so much, is when in Final Destination 3, it's either Perry, or it's Terry, or it's Kerry. I'll check, and I'll put it on screen. I'll put it on screen. Which way does it go? I don't know. Our main character, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, is trying to work out who was on the roller coaster next to her sister. She has just saved her sister's life. Well, she didn't, but she helped save her sister's life. And then there's a moment where she's going, who's next? Who was on the roller coaster with you? Who was it? Who was it? And you're just there thinking, there's two girls stood behind her, and you don't know which one is next until you see the moment in the girl's eyes where she realizes she's next. And she had no idea any of this was going on. She knew that some people had died. She knew that the roller coaster had crashed and that she was supposed to be on it, but she wasn't part of the main story. She had not a clue that her life had been in danger for the past however long since the roller coaster incident. And so you see the moment where she realizes that she's in so much danger, but she doesn't even have a chance to react on it because seconds later, in fact, not even a second, a pole is pulled by a horse and it is launched through the air and it just impales her and she is done. She is gone. It's like that. From the moment she realizes that she is in trouble, seconds later, she is dead. And it is so, for a Final Destination film, there was no build up to it. The build up was trying to save the other characters. There was no intense gore, although it is still quite gross having a pole entirely impale you through the torso region and then pin her essentially so that she was just sliding down it. But it was more the concept of it rather than the actual gore, which was gross. And so that whole scenario of just everyone else in these films, usually other than the first one to die, has, we could say, a fighting chance to survive because they are kind of at least warned. Whether they believe it or not, they are warned that they are in a life or death situation. But she had no idea. She had just watched her best friend almost die and then realized that she was next. And of course, she didn't even have time to react. It was so quick. It was so seamless. It was so understated for a Final Destination film. There was only, I don't know if that character even had lines in the film. Maybe right at the start before she gets on the roller coaster, but beyond that, they don't want you to know who's on the roller coaster. That's the whole point of that mystery point. And yet, within 10 seconds of her appearing on screen, dead. And so it just stuck with me as in a film full of over-the-top, elaborate, gory, shocking, gruesome deaths and kills and scenarios, that to really stand out to me anyway, you still have to have those moments that are just quick and that no one expected. And to a character that has made it to the third quarter of the film, or maybe even the last quarter of the film, unmentioned, and then died. I don't think any of the other films in the series really have had the same situation where there's been someone who was in the accident, or supposed to be in the accident, that then is never mentioned until towards the end of the film. They've definitely done a few moments similar where they've thought someone was in the accident and then it's been revealed that they're not, or something like that. But I think this is the first time that and last time so far in the series, where we have actually had a proper surprise, shock, and sudden death. And it's by far my favorite in the whole series. I don't know why. Beyond that, you could put up a good argument for any of the other kills in the series for any better reason than just it surprised me. But that's why it stuck with me. And every time, I'm hitting puberty. Anytime I watch that film, particularly with people that haven't seen it before, or at least haven't seen it in a while, I love to watch their reactions to that moment, because it is so surprising and shocking, and the idea of it is so violent that you always get a reaction out of your friends or whoever's watching with you. And so that is why that death by, I think it's Perry, it'll say on screen, is my number one horror movie kill, I think, of all time. And so there we have it. Archie is protecting me from any sort of thing that could fly through this massive window that is behind you all. And hopefully I don't get hit by a flying pole in the next however long it takes me to edit and upload this. But until then, I hope you all have a lovely week. And I still haven't thought of an outro for this, so I'm just going to say this has been horror. Oh, I just punched my keyboard. This has been Horror and I, my top 5 favorite horror movie kills. Thank you for watching. Be kind, stay safe, and thank you for watching Horror and I. Come on, Duckle, you get in on this action too. Come on, Duckle. Oh. Horror and us. Also, there's a massive window, and I'm on the top floor of a building with no building on the other side. So there's people out there fully staring at me right now, and I hope you appreciate what I do for art.